Hi there, very good evening to you. You're watching the press preview. A first look at what's on the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers as they arrive. Well, let's see what's making the headlines with the journalist and broadcaster Jenny Kleeman and the Telegraph's associate editor for politics, Christopher Hope. As you can see, they are standing by. Evening to you both. Thank you for joining us tonight. They'll be with us from now until midnight this evening. Let's see what's on some of those front pages. First, though, starting with the newspaper, it reflects on events in Turkey and Syria with the headline, Race to Find Quake Survivors. The Times also leads on the aftermath of the quakes, their headline, Life and Death Under the Ruins. The Guardian reports on the minimum 30-year prison sentence given to the former Metropolitan Police officer and confessed rapist David Carrick. The Metro quotes the Home Secretary Suella Braverman describing Carrick as being a scar on our police. And the Telegraph tomorrow says there are already calls to review Carrick's sentence for being too lenient. The Financial Times has word of today's mini-cabinet reshuffle, and with it, the breakup of the Department for Business into smaller ministries devoted to energy and also to science. While the Daily Mirror leads on the reaction to oil giant BP's record profits. According to the Daily Mail tomorrow, the Church of England may soon debate whether to stop referring to God as He. The Sun has word of a revival of the classic sitcom Fawlty Towers, with John Cleese starring alongside his real-life daughter. And on that theme, the Star newspaper tomorrow claims that 42% of people surveyed cannot remember the last time that they laughed. And a reminder for you that by scanning the QR code that you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's papers while you watch it with us. Let's reintroduce our guests tonight. Jenny Kleeman and Christopher Hope are with us. Evening to you both. Thank you so much for staying up way past your bedtimes, I am sure. And let's start with the Telegraph, Jenny, to you first. And a picture of hope, perhaps, amongst the devastation that we are seeing on our TV screens in Syria and Turkey. A young newborn baby found underneath the rubble in Turkey. Tell us more.
The newspapers have a different job when it comes to telling this story to news channels like yourself. Images that sum up the mood of the day, and there are a couple of really striking stills as opposed to video image stills that are on the papers today. This little girl is a symbol of joy, but also great sadness. She was born, as the Telegraph says, beneath the rubble. Now she is a sole survivor because she has been born an orphan. Her mother has died, her brothers and sisters have died, her parents have died. She was found in the rubble with her umbilical cord still attached. She was saved by the rescuers. There's some extraordinary video footage, in fact. There's a still from some of that video in the piece there of the baby coming out of the rubble. And what a survivor this little girl is. Not just surviving an earthquake, but these incredibly bitter temperatures. And according to the Telegraph, she's getting better by the hour. I mean, we need good stories, positive stories, reasons to feel hopeful. But as Mark Austin was saying, people are not being pulled out of the rubble alive as much as they were only a few hours ago. We are now looking at a massive catastrophe, over 7,000 dead, state of emergency announced in 10 provinces in Turkey. This little girl was pulled out of the rubble in Syria, and things are even more difficult in Syria because, of course, it's the northwest that's affected. That's the part of the country that has been under siege for so many years in the civil war. Roads have been disrupted. It really is very desperate times in that part of the world.
Desperate indeed. Jenny talked of striking photos, Christopher. I don't think you're going to find one more striking than on the front page of the FT tomorrow. Of course, other newspapers use it as well. I mean, it really is just heartbreaking, isn't it? A man holding the hand of his 15-year-old girl who sadly has died.
That's right. Life and death in Syria. There, that image, almost a doll, but actually a newborn baby being carried out from the rubble on our front page, the Telegraph, and then this appallingly sad story of Mesut Hansa holding the hand of his 15-year-old dead daughter in Irmak. I mean, I think this. It's shocking, and you see around him there in that photograph all parts of presumably his house or his home, just crushed there as all these slabs fell down. It's so sad. I mean, it's just tragic. What can you say apart from the fact that on these stories, as Jenny says, papers tell a story mainly through pictures with some eyewitness, and they try and zero in on stories which might try and bring the story alive for readers. And here's an example in the FT.
Yes, a picture really does paint 1,000 words. I mean, there is little more to add, really, to those photos. And of course, we know now that more aid is on the way. International teams are arriving, so hopefully we will have more stories or good news stories coming out. But they are precious, few and far between, as Mark Austin was telling us just a short time ago, as he is live, of course, in Turkey right now. Jenny, let's move on, shall we? Because lots and lots of other stories making the headlines. On to the front page of The Guardian, another really enormous story for us. David Carrick, of course, that's the former Metropolitan Police officer, disgraced and convicted rapist. Monstrous rapist, ex-Met officer jailed for life after years of attack. That's how The Guardian are going with it tomorrow morning. What do you make of their coverage?
36 life sentences, minimum of 30 years. The Guardian are focusing on the judge's comments. There were fantastic sentencing comments by the judge, actually, I found, that he believed his position in the Met made him untouchable. He was not just any copper, not just any policeman. He was entrusted to guard Parliament and diplomatic sites. Any multiple rape crimes, but this is just particularly heinous because he used his role to stop them from power. And in many ways, his victims have been doubly victimized. They were made to feel that there was no justice, and they were made to feel that they were afraid of what might happen if they reported him. So they felt that no justice was due to him. I mean, I think this sentence is apt. I mean, we'll go on to discuss whether or not it's long enough, because, of course, the Telegraph is focusing on that. There were so many warning signs here, so many opportunities to stop this man. The fact that he only lost his job when he pled guilty a month ago. There are likely to be of these kinds of crimes, and obviously Carrick was. The reports against him were made in the fallout after the investigation over Sarah Everard's murder. The women who came forward are incredibly brave, incredibly brave. It's hard enough to secure a rape conviction when the person you're accusing is not a police officer. So this is all testimony to their incredible bravery. It's a good sentence, far too late. I hope he has fun during his 30 years in prison, because I know it's not a very good place for police officers to go.
Christopher, many newspapers also leading with Carrick. Let's have a look at how the Metro have led with it. A scar on our police, of course, that's a quote from the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. What do you make of their coverage?
Well, exactly. I think that Metro is a paper read and seen by commuters and by people travelling. I think they always do really well, I think, with these shocking photographs. This picture of this policeman staring out there, Carrick staring out at the reader. I think it's really, I mean, it's appalling. I mean, and it's not the sadly, won't be the end of these kinds of stories. As we know, when Carrick pled guilty last month, we found out that the Met Police is investigating more than 1,000 sexual and domestic abuse claims involving 800 officers. We don't know how any of those investigations might end up, where they're going. This could be, one fears, the tip of the iceberg. Sir Mark Rowley, the new Met Police chief, says we have failed. That was last month. He's sorry. This man should never have been a police officer, but he was. And why that is, I don't know. And if these cases still start to emerge at a rate of knots, there could be a real crisis approach in the police that isn't, if it's not one already. Already in our front page at the Telegraph, we're saying that the Attorney General may well review, and in fact, has started to review whether this 30-year term 36 life sentences is enough. He should be out when he's 78. We draw attention to other cases of prolific rapists. Reinhard Sinaga, Joseph McCann had their minimum tariffs increased from 30 to 40 years under the unduly lenient sentence scheme. It may be that that's what happens to this individual.
Yeah, Jenny, let's bring you back in and just carry on from what Christopher was saying. Look at the front page of the Day Telegraph and their angle. As you said, Christopher, they go with the news that the Attorney General's already been inundated with complaints that his sentence of 30 plus years is too lenient. I think they're wanting a whole life sentence, certainly some people are. And within the copy, Jenny, they say it comes as the Met's brace for more police to face serious criminal charges after a review was launched of allegations of sex offences and domestic abuse against officers. So this could just be the beginning. And what a nightmare for the Met Police.
Yes, but the Met Police has had a problem with its culture for a very long time now. We know that Dame Cressida Dick presided over a Met Police that was where racist banter was fine, homophobic banter was fine, where there was a lot of domestic abuse among serving male police officers. I think the whole issue with the sentence is interesting. When you have prolific rapists like Reynard Singha serving 40 years, you have to think whether or not this is comparable, and I think it would be important to show that there is a kind of parity between the level of seriousness of the crimes. But of course, we know when we're looking about the absolute crisis in rape conviction in this country and how badly we do when it comes to prosecuting rape, that actually what's more important is to make sure that we can get people convicted at all, let alone how long they serve.
What do you think this means for the Metropolitan Police, and what do they need to do, Christopher, to rebuild trust? I mean, you mentioned London commuters there, women in particular living in the capital.
I think Mark Rowley, as I said earlier, gets it. They want to be completely open. I mean, they've got to open about the investigation, and they've got to really they're checking records of a lot of police at the moment to find out if there are any other appallingly evil people like this in there. There's seriously been a major problem here with vetting. When issues emerge, why are some overlooked? Why aren't they investigated? Why aren't policemen found who commit these crimes immediately thrown out? Well, why is there a pause? Why is there a delay? There's a whole area of public confidence, I think, unaddressed at the moment, and that's why I think this will be the first major test of Mark Rowley's time as the Met Police Chief.
Jenny, you're nodding. Do you want to have a comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say perhaps the biggest problem that Cressida Dick had, or the biggest criticism you could make of her, is she was very much a copper's copper, and she always had the backs of people she was working with, and that was the problem, is that she was defensive first, and I think maybe we just have to really hope that attitude has changed with the new Met Commissioner.
OK, a lot of news coming out of Westminster. Let's see how the Financial Times have covered it today. We've had a cabinet mini reshuffle and also a bit of a Whitehall reshuffle as well. The Financial Times describing it as Sunak breaking up business department to sharpen focus on energy and science. They go on to say that he believes this is going to help turn Britain into a science superpower and also get a big growth plan underway. What do you make of it, Christopher?
Well, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that the only newspaper to splash on this first big reshuffle by Rishi Sunak is the FT, which suggests it hasn't really set the hairs alight in Westminster. I mean, only Rishi Sunak could do a reshuffle and actually sack nobody. Essentially, nobody's lost their jobs here. He's created new jobs and new departments for people. And one hopes it works. It's not quite what the base want, what the supporters want. They want some evidence of a plan, maybe towards tax cuts, maybe early next year. But this is a classic kind of Sunak idea, really, of playing around with name tags in Whitehall, trying to work out the best way to get the best growth. But will this be enough? There's a letter going out tonight from Greg Hands, who's the new chair of the Tory party. In the subject bar, it says 18, and that means 18 months to deliver for this government, i.e., elections going to be September, October next year. Can the changes which Sunak's pushed through today unexpectedly deliver that growth within 18 months? So I'm not so sure, and that's the concern for a lot of people who want the Tories to try and fight Labour properly and not be so far behind the polls.
Yeah, talking of the polls, the FT highlight that the government is seeking to make up for a 20-point lag in the polls right now, and then also highlight the fact that Downing Street have declined to say how much this overhaul could cost, Jenny.
Yeah, I mean, the first line of this FT coverage is really interesting. I'm going to read it. Rishi Sunak has sought to galvanise his government's growth plan by breaking up its business department, Financial Times. I mean, this is the whole point. He's signalling his priorities, which is for Rishi Sunak. Growth means science and technology. It means energy security. Maybe you could see this whole net zero thing as a riposte to those disappointed with his stance to COP last year in Sharm el Sheikh and his dithering over it. But, you know, this is going to involve a lot of admin, a lot of changing emails, civil servants changing offices. And for what? I mean, it's just moving the furniture around a bit and tinkering around the edges. And it doesn't solve problems with the NHS or with Dominic Raab or with strikes. So this looks a bit like window dressing to me, rather than a prime minister who feels that he's powerful.